past couple of days, we've seen a lot of coping and seething from the Palworld audience. First, Nintendo wasn't going to sue Palworld, and then they did, but now, like, oh, they don't have a case. They're going after patents, which are clearly frivolous, and Palworld did nothing wrong. Again, these people are going to take major, massive L's in the coming months. Okay, it's gonna be amazing to watch. It's gonna be so bad. I think the anti-Pokemon narrative is gonna completely collapse, and I really don't think the audience is going to recover from this. This is going to be like the Yokai Watch thing all over again, right? Remember how in 2012 everybody was screaming about like Yokai Watch is the Pokemon killer, and like look where it is now. Not even leaving Japan, right? It was an interesting experience seeing Palworld be shilled the way it was, because it really demonstrates just how much the PC Master Race is nothing more than a paper tiger, right? You can see the gaming YouTubers who covered Palworld and religiously covered it, right? Like, oh, it's better than Pokemon. You don't play Pokemon. You don't know anything about Pokemon. That can't be more obvious. You're not a Pokemon YouTuber. Why would I ever take you seriously when it comes to this claim that Palworld does things better than Pokemon? It's just not true at all. Obviously. Palworld is obviously a plagiarized product. That's all it comes down to, and people really, really need to acknowledge that. They should acknowledge that. And right now, as I've looked at this situation develop, right, I've seen a couple of people flip. People begin to realize that like Palworld isn't that great, and that Nintendo's in the right, and like they have absolutely no chance of winning. But there are definitely a lot of people who are 100% in the Palworld camp. I would just like to call out that fucker Neon at Clownfish TV. Yeah, fuck you, buddy. 3 videos in a couple of days trying to gaslight people into thinking, Nintendo, if they win this lawsuit, they're going to oppress the gaming industry. Like, no understanding at all over how patent law works. No appreciation at all for the fact that Nintendo has never utilized their patents to oppress any genuine developer in the gaming industry, right? No real, like, consideration for the fact that, like, this conspiracy theory is kind of retarded, right? There's no thought put into these claims, really, that Nintendo is evil and that Palworld is good, right? These are just fanboy copes from grifters who want to make a quick buck, making negative videos about Nintendo. That's all it really comes down to. But I have been paying enough attention to what's going on with this ecosystem. Maybe, the people who are pro Palworld, maybe 10,000 people, right? Not joking you, like the total cumulative amount of people who like Palworld, who want to play it, who want to support it, who think it's better than Pokemon, it's about 10,000 people, right? It has about like 13,000 players on Steam right now, right? It did not get a significant bump from the lawsuit, right? Palworld is completely and utterly irrelevant. Nobody's playing about this game. Nobody's talking about this game unless it's to insist that it's not a plagiarized product of Nintendo's, right? Like, again, Palworld was an abortion from the get-go, right? It never went anywhere, never was going to go anywhere. The fact that people think this is going to be some major IP on par with Pokemon is laughable, right? Like, the merch is going to save it. The TV show is going to save it. Those things are never going to get made, okay? Again, Palworld is a complete joke. But one of the things I noticed, when I was doing my research, when I was trying to see, like, evaluate just what people were saying online, right? I was going on Twitter, I was going on forums and stuff like that, 4chan, and I really began to notice a pattern. And this was true right away, right? And I think a lot of us chalked it up to the fact that, like, people are just regurgitating the same arguments over and over and over again. But no, like, the more I looked at the pro Palworld camp, the more I began to realize that their pro Palworld posts were completely copy and pasted. right? They were the exact same statements made over and over and over again, regardless of content. Regardless of context, right? Oh, they're suing for patents, not copyright, which means that Nintendo doesn't have anything on copyright, which is retarded for a lot of reasons. But that's the legit claim they're rolling with right now, right? And when you look on Twitter and you start looking finding these accounts and you start scrolling through them and you realize that they did not exist until February 2024, and all they do is just talk about Palworld or occasionally some other like weird shovelware thing. They don't follow anybody. They're not followed by anybody, right? These people, quote unquote, are not real, right? The vast majority of pro Palworld posts you see online are entirely pushed by bots, from India, an AstroTurfing campaign. No different than that wave we got of like with Cyberpunk 2077, right? Where we got all these people like coming out of nowhere trying to say that like it was the best anime of the year and that somehow made Cyberpunk 2077 a good game, right? Same argument, right? But these bots seem a lot lower quality, right? Because the bots that I saw for Edge Runners were a lot more sophisticated. They were able to like adapt to people like noticing that they were bots, that it was an AstroTurfing campaign. Like, oh, this is totally organic. What are you talking about, right? Like, to me, it looks like Pocket Pair has spent a significant amount of their resources purchasing bots to try and make their game look bigger than it really is, right? And it's really interesting that this seems to be the case, because this puts a lot of things in the Palworld into question, like how high the game, how much the game actually sold, how many people were actually playing it on Steam. Like it really explains the sharp drop off too, right? Because if the player count was boosted by bots, that explains like the insane drop off like 2 weeks in, right? If the game really was that good, people would still be playing it. I can tell you from experience, people are still playing Pokemon Legends Arceus. People are still playing Scarlet and Violet. People are still playing Sword and Shield. People were playing like, people play older gens. It was only just recently that like the servers for the 3DS games were shut down, right? So people were still playing those. Again, when you compare Palworld to an actual viable IP like Pokemon, the difference is night and day, right? There is not a 2-week drop-off of a player base for a new Pokemon game, the way there was for Palworld. So what does this mean exactly? First of all, like the idea that Palworld was ever competitive with Pokemon is laughable, right? That was completely and totally wrong right from the get-go. But second of all, this really does raise a lot of questions in regards to like why Palworld was pushed the way it was. Because I don't know if like the Pocket Pair CEO was just a retard who thought he could just adapt mobile game tactics into like the console space. I don't know if like they thought they could get Sony on board and protect them, if they thought they could get away with this, or if they're just that stupid. But like what we're seeing now is kind of an unprecedented situation in which like a knockoff product got some amount of attention and essentially damaged Nintendo's brand because of how many people use this release to try and downplay the Pokemon IP. And I do think this is like the big thing, the big takeaway thing is that they stole Pokemon designs, stole the software, the patented material, and then used it in the sleaziest way possible. Talking shit about the developers, like, oh, Nintendo can't do anything to us. Like, doing everything they could to just like kind of shit on the original IP. And for what little Palworld fans do exist, like that is the defining characteristic of the brand, right? Nobody actually likes Palworld. Like if you really look at the discussion online, right, nobody cares about the games, nobody cares about the creatures and the collecting or the gameplay, right? Because there's nothing to do, right? The entire reason this game got any notoriety whatsoever was purely as a vehicle to attack Pokemon with. And this has happened before with Temtem, right? with Yokai Watch to a certain extent, with Digimon even back in the day. Like, you keep seeing this happen over and over and over and over again. And really, Palworld is no different from that. Again, like, even if Palworld manages to win this lawsuit, not going to happen, but like, if they win this lawsuit and they continue to make Palworld games, you know what's going to happen? People aren't going to support it. People are going to get bored of the rehash content of how it's just a knockoff of Pokemon with Unity assets and just a trickle of new content every once in a while, right? Again, Palworld was not able to retain its relevancy even within the first 2 weeks. So, like, what makes you think this is going to be some big, major, iconic brand? No. Much like Yokai Watch, much like Digimon, much like, all the other Pokemon competitors, right? Palworld is 100% going to fall off no matter what. Now, the question now remains like as to what extent it's going to be. Is it going to be a slow and gradual drop off, due to the audience losing interest, or is Nintendo going to get their injunction and shut them down completely? Like they say they're going to do. Personally, I'm leaning towards the injunction. Everything I've seen so far seems to indicate that Nintendo has this in the bag. They have the overwhelming advantage. They have the resources. Palworld did plagiarize their product. So I can't imagine that any Japanese courtroom would ever side with Pocket Pair over Nintendo, considering like the popularity of the Pokemon brand and how iconic it is over there. Like, I've said this before, but like, it really feels like unless Sony intervenes because of that deal they signed with Pocket Pair, like they really have no shot at all. Is my genuine understanding of this situation, and it really needs to be talked about more. This needs to be studied, right? This needs to. I am never going to shut up about this, right? People never, ever should have taken this IP series.